Well, good evening. We're back to the study of this book. We've been studying somnambulism, ecstatic trance, and second sight for the past 3 or 4 weeks. And now there is the theoretical summary of all 3 of them: somnambulism, ecstatic trance, and second sight. It's not really a question, it's more of a dissertation by Kardec. We are going to try to read, it's a long text of 4 or 5 pages. We're going to try to divide in the 3 aspects, in somnambulism, ecstatic trance, and second sight. Philip, you're going to read. The first part is the very long one, so bear with us. And Philip, please.
Theological summary of somnambulism, ecstatic trance, and second sight. Natural somnambulism occurs spontaneously and independent of any known external cause, but among certain people endowed with a special physical makeup, they may be produced artificially through the action of a magnetic agent. The state called magnetic somnambulism is no different than the natural somnambulism, except that it is artificially produced, while the other is spontaneous. Natural somnambulism, despite its miraculous nature, is a well-known fact that few now dispute. Why should we view magnetic somnambulism as more extraordinary or incredible simply because it is produced artificially, like so many other phenomena? Some say that charlatans exploit it, but that is another reason to refuse abandoning it to their hands. Whenever science embraces somnambulism, charlatans will have far less influence on the masses. Meanwhile, since both natural and artificial somnambulism effectively are in fact, there is no argument against fact. They are gaining grounds despite detractors, even in the realm of science, where it is entering through a multitude of side doors instead of through the front. Its right to be scientifically respected will soon be fully recognized. For Spiritism, somnambulism is much more than a physical wonder. Somnambulism sheds a brilliant light on psychology, and it is a state in which we can study the soul, because in this state, the soul fully reveals itself. One of the phenomena that characterize the soul is clairvoyance, which is independent of the ordinary organs of sight. Critics claim that somnambulists do not see all the time and at the will of the experimental scientists as they see with their eyes. Should we be shocked that the results are not the same, given that the means are different? Is it logical to expect identical effects when the instruments do not exist? The soul has properties just like the eyes, and the former must be judged in its own right and not by analogy. The root of the clairvoyance of both the magnetic and the natural somnambulist is the same exactly. It is an attribute of the soul, and it is, in fact, an intrinsic ability of the spiritual being in us, and which has no limits than those assigned to the soul itself. They see wherever their soul can transport themselves, regardless of the distance. At a distance, somnambulists do not see from where their bodies are located, as if through a telescope. It is instead as if the objects in the scope of their vision are in front of them, as if they were exactly where they see them, because their souls are there in reality. This is why Their bodies seem to be overpowered and deprived of sensation until their souls retake possession of them. This partial separation of the soul and the body is abnormal and is not permanent. This is why the body feels tired after a lapse of time, especially when the soul is active during that partial separation. The fact that soul sight or spirit sight is not restricted and has no definite center explains why somnambulists are unable to attribute any special organ or focus to it. They see because they see, without knowing why or how, because sight for them as spirits does not have its own place in the body. If they refer to their perception to the body, this focus seems to be where vital activity is greatest, particularly in the brain, the epigastrial region, or whatever organ is where the bond between the spirit and the body is strongest. The scope of somnambulistic clarity is not limitless, even when completely free. A spirit only possesses the abilities and knowledge associated with its degree of evolution. This limitation is further narrowed when associated with matter and subjected to its influence. This is why somnambulistic clairvoyance is neither universal nor foolproof. It is less reliable when it deviates from the purpose given by nature. It is instead treated as a curiosity or subject of experimentation. When the spirits of somnambulists are free, they more easily communicate with other spirits, incarnate or discarnate, through the contact of fluids that make up their perispirits and which enable the transmission of thought like an electric wire. Somnambulists do not require verbal speech to convey thoughts, which they feel and deduce. This method of perception makes them highly accessible and vulnerable to the influence of the moral atmosphere surrounding them. Because of this, the presence of a large group of spectators to witness a somnambulist ability is not ideal, particularly when it is comprised of those who are only curious. These manifestations only occur freely in intrinsic gatherings and under the influence of sympathetic surroundings. The presence of those who are malicious or hostile produces the same effect as someone's hand touching the sensitive person. Somnambulists see their spirits and their bodies at the same time. The spirit and the body are two beings that represent their dual existence. Both spiritual and physical blend into one by the ties that united them. Somnambulists do not always understand this situation and the duality, which often leads them to speak of themselves as if they were speaking of another person. In such cases, the physical being sometimes speaks to the spiritual being, and the spiritual being sometimes speaks to the physical being. In each physical existence, spirits acquire more knowledge and experience. They lose sight of these gains when they reincarnate because matter is too rudimentary to allow them to recall this knowledge fully. However, they remember it as spirits. This is how some somnambulists show signs of possessing knowledge beyond their education and apparent intellectual capacity. Therefore, the intelligent and scientific inferiority of somnambulists while awake does not disprove the knowledge that they may display when lucid. Depending on the circumstances and intention, they may draw this knowledge from their own experience, from clairvoyant perception of actual events, or from counsels that they received from other spirits. Their statements are more or less correct depending on their degree of evolution. In both natural and magnetic somnambulism, God provides undeniable proof of the existence and independence of the soul by allowing us to witness the awe-inspiring display of its emancipation. Through these phenomena, it opens to us the book of our destiny. When somnambulists describe their visions, it is obvious that they are seeing what they are describing, just not through their human eyes. They see themselves at that distant point and feel transported there. Part of the somnambulist is actually present at the distant point. And since it is not the body, it can only be the soul or spirit. We human beings lose ourselves in abstract and unintelligible metaphysical subtleties in search of the root of our moral existence. However, God places the simplest and most certain means for studying experimental psychology right within our reach.
Thanks, Philip. Thank you for the long reading. So, Kardec here on this dissertation on somnambulism focused mostly on the ability of the somnambulists to see the spiritual world, what he calls here the clairvoyance, right? Which is the ability of individuals in a state of trance to see and describe experiences in the spiritual world. When we talked and discussed somnambulism, we mentioned that one characteristic of the somnambulists, most somnambulists, is that they don't remember what they experienced or talked about when they are in the somnambulic state. When they come back to, they wake up, different from not wake up because they're not sleepy. Well, it's a sleep state in terms of the somnambulism, right? So Kardec starts talking about natural and magnetic somnambulism, and that they're both the same, just the magnetic is induced somnambulism is a type of hypnotism, right? Can be induced and the person can enter into a somnambulic state and experience the spiritual world. So the first part here, Kardec talks about basically that there are no difference. And he talks about that magnetic somnambulism just proves that natural somnambulism is a reality, and both it can coexist and they are the same. Now, then he talks about how Spiritism sees somnambulism, right? Because until today, and again, this is from 1857, until today, science sees somnambulism / sleepwalking as some issues with the brain, right? That causes the person to sleepwalk, right? Because the somnambulist, in the sense that Kardec describes here, someone that is in a trance and is describing the experience that they are having in the spiritual world, I don't think science describes or studies it. But science only studies sleepwalking, because sleepwalking is something that, it happens, the body moves, and science has to analyze it and has to study. But the somnambulic state, where the body is stationary and the spirit is describing its experience in the spiritual world, it's not studied by science. And then Kardec talks about how the somnambulist sees what's happening around them. And it's not, of course, it's as we go into a somnambulic state and our spiritual body distance itself from the physical body, the spiritual body can go to places, interact with others in the spiritual world, or other incarnates that are also through a dream state or some other state in the spiritual world, and can describe what's going on. They can also have experiences in the physical world, meaning if they, if you are sleepwalking, you can talk about what's happening to you without being fully aware from the physical aspect of it, right? And this sight is an attribute of the spirit. That's what Kardec is telling us here, which is very clear for us, right? Because, of course, the individual is not seen with the physical eyes. It's describing things that are not there in the presence of the individual. So it has to be, according to science, product of its imagination, according to Spiritism, an experience in the spiritual world that they are describing. That Kardec also makes it very clear that is limited to the evolvement of the spirit, not of the incarnated being, but the eternal spirit. So it may limit their ability, and also can make them say things and describe things that are not the reality, because that's according to their own interpretation, bias, or anything, and things like that. But they are describing what they are seeing. It talks about the scope of somnambulist clarity is not limitless. Again, the abilities and knowledge associated with its degree of evolution. And also he talks about the influence of the surroundings, right? That the fact that the somnambulic person may be surrounded by either disbelievers or people trying to disturb it can harm the experience. And again, the same way that, if you bring someone to a mediumship meeting that wants to disturb the meeting, it's going to cause difficulties or make it impossible for the mediums to use their mediumship, because there'll be disturbances. It's the vibration, and it's a series of other things. So the same thing happens with somnambulists. If there is disturbance, vibration that is harming the experience, it can cause difficulties and it can cause problems. So they recommend, Kardec recommends that, of course, for those watching a somnambulic experience, that they have to be connected and in synchrony with the work that is being done there, right? I don't think there is much more here. It's a long text, but we already discussed a lot of the aspects of somnambulism in the two classes that we talked about it. I don't know, you have something to add here, Amo? Anyone has any questions, any comments here? Okay, so we're going for ecstatic trance. Now the texts are shorter. Philip.
Ecstatic trance is the state in which the soul's independence from the body is most apparent and tangible to the observer. In dreaming and somnambulism, the soul wanders through physical worlds. In an ecstatic trance, the soul penetrates an unknown world, that of ethereal spirits with whom it communicates, bounded by unsurpassable limits that would not be granted to the spirit without fully breaking the links that tie it to the body. Enveloped by different wonders, captivated by a harmony that is foreign to earth, and overwhelmed by immeasurable bliss, the soul catches a glimpse of heavenly happiness, and it may be said that it places one foot on the threshold of eternity. The Annihilation of physical ties is almost complete while a person is in an ecstatic trance. The body possesses organic life only, and a single thread connects it to the soul. It would break forever from the exertion of only the slightest effort. In this state, all earthly thoughts disappear and give way to the purified sensitivity that is the essence of our immaterial being. Completely absorbed in this transcendent state of contemplation, a person in an ecstatic trance views human life merely as a stop on our eternal journey. The successes and failures of this lower world, along with its rudimentary joys and sorrows, are nothing more than pointless incidents along a journey, and the ecstatic person anxiously awaits its end. The same thing happens with ecstatics as with somnambulists. Depending on their level of elevation, their lucidity may be more purified or less so, and they may or may not be able to grasp the truths of things. In their abnormal state of ecstasy, there is sometimes more nervous excitement than true lucidity. In fact, this nervous excitement impairs their lucidity, and the resulting revelations are often a mixture of truth and error, inspirational and ridiculous ideas, or even outrageous whims. Inferior spirits often take advantage of this excitement, which is a source of weakness when unrestrained, to overpower the ecstatic person. They assume the appearance that confirms the ideas and preconceptions from their waking state. This, this is an obstacle, but not all cases are similar, and we must weigh their statements carefully and judge their revelations under the microscope of reason. The soul can be emancipated when it is awake, and this allows people possessing the second sight to see, hear, and feel beyond the limits of our senses. They perceive things wherever their soul may travel through ordinary sight and judge these perceptions to be of some kind of mirage. When the second sight occurs, the physical state is visibly changed. A person's gaze, sometimes distant, and his or her physical appearance reflects the nervous system is in an unusual state. It is apparent that the physical eyes take no part in present perceptions because vision continues despite the closing of the eyes.
Yeah, thanks, Philip. Sorry, this last paragraph should be the last part, should be part of the second sight, and I marked the wrong part here, but anyway, we'll come back to that. So when we talk about ecstatic trance, it's a state that goes beyond the simple somnambulism, and there's the spirit, the soul independence. It's more independent from the physical body in the sense that reaches higher levels of the spiritual world. Kardec makes the comparison that in dreaming and somnambulism, the soul wanders through physical worlds, which is what happens in most of the cases. Of course, you can go into more evolved places. But in an ecstatic trance, as he says here, the soul penetrates an unknown world, that of ethereal spirits, meaning a much more elevated realm of the spiritual world that is normally a realm that we don't experience. I explained when we studied the class we studied ecstatic trance, I mentioned two cases, the case of Euripides Barçanufo that met with Jesus, and the case of the composer that was in a church and received the full composition through an ecstatic trance and came back and wrote, right? So this is a state of ecstasy, right? Goes beyond the simple experience in the spiritual world. It's an experience in the spiritual world at a higher level. Of course, Kardec mentions here that it can be disturbed, it can be affected by inferior spirits, that can you take advantage of these states to influence if the ecstatic, the person in the ecstatic trance is not prepared, is not well it's not well prepared to deal with the state, right? And can be influenced by inferior spirits. But in general, it is a state where the spirit experiences more elevated realms of existence. Of course, with that, it becomes more difficult for them to describe what they experience because we probably don't have words to describe both the state and what they are seeing there. So it may come with our own earthly limitations of describing what their experiences, okay? But again, we spent one class on it. I'm not going to go much further than that. And then the last paragraph was already second sight, which is remote viewing. We studied last week. Again, the difference between clairvoyant and second sight or remote viewing is that a clairvoyant is seeing the spiritual world. Second sight or remote viewing, most of the times you are seeing the physical world, things that are beyond your where you are. So you can see persons, you can see a little bit of their sometimes the past, the future, but you can see other places and describe what's happening somewhere else. I gave the example of this former colleague of ours here that was able to see the tsunami, 2 days before it happened or 3 days before it happened. He could see what was going on there. So this is clearly a phenomenon of remote viewing, second sight. So Philip, just read these last 3 paragraphs and then we come back to it a little bit.
Starting with second sight?
Yeah.
The second sight for those who possess this gift appears as natural to them as conventional sight. It is an attribute of their being, and they are not aware of its exceptional character. They normally forget this brief lucidity, which fades from their memory like a distant dream. The power of the second sight varies from a perplexing sensation to a clear perception of present or distant things. In its rudimentary state, it gives some individuals acuity or confidence in their decisions and actions that we may call the precision of moral glance. At a higher degree of development, it incites premonitions. Even further developed, it may show events that have already taken place or that are about to happen. Natural and artificial somnambulism, ecstatic trance, and second sight all stem from the same cause. Like dreams, they are a branch of natural phenomena and have always existed. History shows us that they have been recognized and exploited since the dawn of time. They provide an explanation for a greater number of occurrences that irrational preconceptions have led humanity to label as supernatural.
Okay, so again, the remote viewing, for those that we talked about it last week, for those that have it, it's because they always had it, it seems natural to them. It seems that it's, they have this ability they always have, and until they understand that it's an exception, they think that everybody has it. Then they understand that is an ability that not everyone has. It's a state, it's a state of semi-trance. It's not a full trance because the person, the psychics that we see, I mentioned this last week, the psychics that we see here in New York City in a lot of corners, right? Many of them truly have second sight or are able to do remote viewing, and that's how they charge for their psychic abilities, talking about the person past, present, future, or things that they can see. Of course, there are many charlatans in the middle, but for those that truly know how to work and have this ability, they really can produce the phenomena in a semi-state of trance and talk about what they are seeing beyond what it's there in their room. When they come back, they may forget what they said because it may fade from their memory like it was a dream. And again, there are stages of development. There are more developed psychics. There are less developed psychics again. And again, the difference between psychic and mediumship is the psychic is an ability that the person has, and mediumship means intermediary from the spiritual world, bringing messages or things like that. A psychic, it's their own ability. So clairvoyance, second sight, remote viewing are psychic abilities that can also be used as mediumship abilities if the person with these abilities are transmitting messages from the spiritual world. So if that is the case, then it can be called mediumship. But they are all, like Kardec says, they come from the same cause. They are natural phenomena, have always existed. We know throughout history about the oracles in the ancient Greece, all religions, all antique civilizations, old civilizations have these cases that they may call by other names, but what Spiritism tries to do is to explain a little further and to explain in more detail, which is our experiences in the spiritual world or beyond the abilities of our physical body. Okay? I think we have enough of that. Paco, yes.
Yeah. It seems to me, I don't know, remember, I'm always thinking out loud, okay? I just want you to check on my thinking. It seems to me that these abilities are kind of fluid, not discrete. I guess, for the purpose of studying this, so we make them discrete, this and this in terms of categories. But in reality, they're kind of natural and fluid. Somnambulist could be experience an ecstatic trance. It could experience a second sight in different points. Am I grasping that correctly?
Yeah, in the same way that a medium can be a medium of psychography, of psychophony,
Exactly.
or only one or more than one. A person may have a somnambulic ability and also can go into an ecstatic trance, also can have second sight, or only one of them, or only two of them. So,
okay.
Yes.
Great. Now it makes more sense to me. The fact that the element of fluidity kind of makes it less confusing. Let me put it this way.
Yes, all these three subjects are very confusing.
Yes, they are. They are difficult concepts.
Yeah, and
I'm sorry, they are difficult concepts.
I joke here with Elmo that every time we come back to these subjects in the book, we learn new things or we change our
exactly.
Yes, they were, because it's really complex, all these subjects.
Thank you.
Thanks, Paco. All right, so now we move to chapter 9, which is intervention of spirits on the physical world, right? This follows a sequence. So we were talking about the physical world, experiencing the spiritual world. Now we're moving to intervention of spirits in the physical world. And the first one is the penetration of our thoughts by spirits. Okay, so let's go 456.
Do spirits see everything that we do? They can if they so choose, since they are always with you. Practically, spirits only see what they direct their attention to and ignore what does not interest them.
Yeah, it's important here to understand we are surrounded by spirits, yes, but we are not that interesting that they are paying attention to us at all times, right? So they have their own interests, they have their own lives, like we here in the physical world, right? Always the example I give: you walk one block on Fifth Avenue, you meet 100 people, and after one block, if I ask you what did anyone say of anything, what did you hear people were talking about? And you may say, oh, I said one person was talking about this or that, or you may say, I am paying attention to anyone. So again, surrounded by people, nobody's paying attention to you, you are not paying attention to anybody special. So that's how spirits are around us. If they choose to pay attention to what we're doing, if they choose to see what we are doing, they will. If they have, it's also a matter of vibration or connections, they can, but normally they wouldn't, because it doesn't interest them, right? If you go to a bar and a lot of people are talking about the game they're watching on TV there at the bar, and you don't care at all about the game, you don't pay attention to what people are talking about. You are focused on your own thoughts. And if someone asks you what they were discussing, what did they say about the game, you're going to say, I don't know, I didn't pay any attention to it. But people were there talking, you could pay attention to it. So that's, for us to understand how the spirits around us are or not paying attention to us. Okay.
457. Can spirits see our innermost thoughts? They often see what we would like to hide from, what you would like to hide from yourselves. Neither acts nor thoughts can be hidden from spirits. So it is easier to hide something from an incarnate person than when that person is passed on. Exactly. When you believe yourself to be in complete solitary privacy, you often have a crowd of spirits watching you.
I think that what the spirits are trying to tell us is don't think that you can hide yourself from us, right? Because in a way it contradicts what they said, that nobody's paying. Most spirits are ignoring what we do, but what they're saying here, that yes, they can see our innermost thoughts, and we know by reading the books of André Luiz, of Manuel Filomeno de Miranda, that the spirits are present and can see and can read our thoughts depending on their level of evolution, and can see everything that we are thinking. So of course, it's easier to hide from an incarnate person, because from the spirits that we don't see and we don't know what they are, how much access they have to us, it is they are more able to see us and to see our thoughts. But again, depends. We have our protections. We have depending on what the spirits are interested or not. So when we are trying to do something positive or something negative, we are going to have spirits that want to associate with us for both sides, to the positive to help us, into more evolved spirits to help us and to encourage us to work for our own progress and to help others. And when we are doing negative acts, we will have spirits that connect with our inferior sentiments, and because they want to harm us, or because they want to harm the ones that we are trying to cause harm to, or because they take pleasure in in these inferior actions, they will connect with us. But they will only connect with us if we allow them to connect with us. When we, when we think of these lower thoughts, we lower our vibration, then it's when they are going to be able to connect. Because when we talk about doing the gospel at home every week to protect our home, is to protect our home from these spirits that are going to try to, there is always spirits trying to influence us, trying to cause us suffering, harm, pain, and we need to protect ourselves, and the best instrument we have to protect ourselves is prayer. Not because of the words, but because of the sentiment that comes from our hearts. Okay.
458.
Yeah.
What do the spirits who observe us think of us? That depends on the spirits themselves. Light-hearted spirits enjoy the small disturbances they cause you and laugh at your impatience. More serious spirits pity your flaws and try to help you rid yourself of them.
Yeah, again, what do those around us in the incarnated people think of us? It's the same thing, right? If we're doing something stupid, there will be always people making fun of us, trying to make fun of us and at us. There are those that maybe if they like us, try to prevent us from making fool of ourselves. And those are those that are not interested and we ignore. So, the same thing with the spirits. Those that depends on what they want to do. If they are having fun at our expense, they are going to try to cause disturbances and make and for them to laugh. So this can be through physical actions, right? Making things disappear if they have this ability, making things, making noises and things like that. Or they can just sit there and watch, make fun of us if we are doing something stupid. Spirits, more elevated spirits, they're trying to help us. So they will try to help us overcome our flaws and try to help us progress. The interest of more evolved spirits is for general human progress. So they will be, of course, trying to help and assist us to achieve anything that can help us achieve progress. Okay?
Okay.
Sure.
Yeah, I have a question. The same way that elevated spirits are willing or are there to help us, there must be spirits that are not so elevated that may want to do us harm.
Yes.
Or
Absolutely.
guide us to places where we shouldn't be. You understand?
Yes, exactly.
An alcoholic passing through a bar,
Yeah.
not so elevated spirits would induce a person to walk into the bar.
Yes, and actually, this example that you gave, there are two types of spirits that will try to influence you go to a bar. Those that are directly associated with you, that don't want you to progress for several reasons, or maybe because they don't like you and they want to cause you harm, or because they are companions from the past that don't want to see you evolving, because then they will have to make an effort and evolve and they don't want to. And the second type are spirits that have no relation with you, but because they need to feel, they miss the drinking and they need to feel the sensations that will come from those that drink, they are going to try to make you go into the bar so they can share the drink with you. So
okay, those three examples that you gave us, actually you can have parallel examples in the physical world.
of course.
Okay.
Yeah, well, because in the end, Paco, it's just us on the other side, right?
Yeah.
invisible us on the other side that we don't change when we go to the other side.
Exactly.
But again, these are the negative. But there is always, you know, when you talk about not so evolved spirits, there may be, let's say, your grandfather that is not so evolved, but he likes you very much and trying to help you grow, progress. He may be at your side trying to prevent you from going to the bar, trying to tell you, listen, you went through this experience before, you know it's not good for you, don't go there. So he's not more evolved than you, let's say. He's at the same level that you are, but he cares about you, so he's trying to help you also. So it doesn't need to be only more evolved spirits. It can be our familial spirits that can be at our level, but they want the best, what's best for us, so they'll try to help and assist us in any way that they can. And sometimes, because of our vibrations, it's easier for us to connect with our familial spirits than to more elevated spirits, because we are not used to vibrate at a higher level. Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
Just to keep in mind, any spirit can only utilize what we, the incarnate, provides to them for both cases, for the more elevated and the less elevated spirits. They have to find something within us to get their attention. They can utilize in order to provide us influence to go to a bar, so to say, or to do a more elevated kind of project. We have to provide them something that they will stimulate them to help and help us.
You're mute, Paco.
So ultimately, you're saying that at the very end, I am responsible.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly. Because in the end, they are trying to influence you, but you have the free will to make your own decisions. If you are going inside the bar or not, it's your decision. It's not the decision of any spirit that is around you. They're trying to influence you, but your free will is going to take you there or not, right? So in the end, the responsibility is ours.
It's ours.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And the other way also, we see a lot in the books on the Luis, the higher order spirit says, oh no, we cannot help this one, or this one we have to leave it alone for now. We can do nothing for them. Why? Because they do not have, the incarnate, anything that they can utilize to help that individual in need.
Yeah, what Elmo is trying to say here, it's for you. I just remember when he mentioned it, that lady that was trying to go into Nosso Lar, and at the gate, and Luis goes with I think is what's her name? Veneranda. With Minister Veneranda, he goes to the door, and this lady wants to go into Nosso Lar, and they don't allow her. And then she leaves, and there is a lot of black spots around her, which was the abortions that she helped during her incarnation. And it's the example, right? She's not ready to be helped. So we cannot help those that are not ready to be helped. That's why, that's what Elmo mentioned here, and I just remember the case of Nosso Lar, right? Okay. Right, I think we can do a couple, yes?
Covert influence of spirits on our thoughts and action, 459. Do spirits influence our thoughts and actions? They often direct both. Their influence is greater than you think, for very frequently it is they who guide you.
Yes, this is one question that is mentioned a lot in talks, in presentations, in discussions. Do spirits influence our thoughts and actions? And the answer from the spirits is they often direct both. Their influence is greater than you think, for it is very frequently they who guide you. Why is that? because through our vibrations, we allow them to guide us one way or another. Again, the discussion we were having in the previous question about going or not to the bar, right? So we may be passing through the bar and not by ourselves, not inclined to go into it. But suddenly the spirit's trying to influence us, tell us to, why go to that bar? And then we listen to them and we go to the bar. So it's in that sense, or on the other way around, right? We are passing through a bar. We have the tendency of going to these places, but we are in a good mood or a good vibration level, and our protecting spirits can inspire and guide us not to give in to our tendencies and to move forward, to not act. So it is in that sense that they are talking about their influence in our thoughts and actions are greater than what we think. It's not that they interfere with our free will, but many times they give us suggestions and we follow their suggestions more than we know and more than we think. Is in that sense, not interfering with our free will, okay? I think we have 5 minutes. I'd rather stop here and come back to this question because it continues on expanding on this, and I think we have to go back to this question next week and start from there, because it's going to discuss a little bit further on our thoughts and whose thoughts are original thoughts, whose thoughts are suggested to us, how can we distinguish between our thoughts and their thoughts, how geniuses and intelligent people have inspirations and things like that. So because we have only 5 minutes left, I'd rather stop here and not go into that, and then come back next week and continue the study from the beginning of this item, this chapter. Okay? Okay. So we're going to stop here. Let me tell you what we have Saturday. We have a very interesting lecture by Yuri Castro. The subject is Evolving Earth, ? So he's going to talk about the evolution of Earth, our planet, and it's a thing that has been discussed a lot. We talk about planetary transition. So Yuri is a speaker from Florida, and he's very good. It's really worth. So Saturday, 11 a.m. Through the United States Spiritist Federation YouTube page. Sunday is the 4th Sunday of the month, so we are going to have our Q&A session. Please bring your questions, your topics. Let's have a good discussion, okay? Carol, can you do our final prayer?
Yes, certainly. Thank you very much, John. Thank you, Elmo. Thank you, Philip, for reading for us this evening, and everyone who is here participating. Infinite Creator and Supreme Intelligence, we give thanks to be together for our studies of the Spirit's Book, Book 2, Chapter 8, the summary of Somnambulism, Ecstatic Trance, and Second Sight. Somnambulism can be produced spontaneously or through artificial magnetic agents. These attributes are of the soul which is seeing. They are the same and can coexist. Soul or spirit's sight has no particular organ in the body in which it sees. It's wherever the bond is the strongest. Malicious and curious onlookers can influence somnambulists as well as the superior spirits. Visions are not witnessed by their physical eyes, but they can describe experiences and things that are occurring in the spiritual world. They can be influenced by their own knowledge, however, which can be distortions of their own making. In ecstatic trance, the spirit is almost completely separated from the body. It's a sublime and blissful state, and the inferior spirits can take advantage of this state of being. This goes beyond somnambulism. Words can barely express and may not really describe what an individual is seeing. In remote viewing, locations in the physical world are either present or distant. They can be seen, often with great deal of detail. We give thanks to our spiritual benefactors and the good spirits for guiding and inspiring us this evening. May we receive the love, light, and peace of Christ within us for our loved ones, our teachers, our directors, our counselors, our mediums, the workers, and all participants. We pray for inner peace, and especially now for world peace, and for those who are suffering in the physical and spiritual worlds. We pray for our center SGNY and all Spiritist centers throughout the world, that they may prosper, expand, and be protected throughout the day and throughout the night. As we close, we humbly ask for safety and protection as we return to our family, friends, loved ones, and co-workers. May we go forth and remind ourselves to be beacons of love, of light, of peace, of service, and charity, which is love in action. May peace and love prevail. So be it.